When I was a kid, we often went camping on Lake Superior, located in Thunder Bay, Ontario. One day, when I was 6 years old, I fell off the dock and plunged into the water. I still couldn't swim. While I was under the water, I distinctly remember seeing a little girl down there who told me to look up towards the sun and just keep kicking and I'd be fine. I swam to the surface just in time for my grandfather to grab me and pull me back on the dock. I found out later that a little girl had drowned in that lake near that very same spot. When I was just a baby, my older sister Julia had an imaginary friend named Jessica. She said when Jessica got mad, her eyes turned green and her voice grew deeper. She was Julia's friend for a long, long time. But then things started to get a little weird. After a while, my parents began to believe that our house was haunted. One night, my mom was putting me to bed and I began to cry and point at the corner. My mom tried to comfort me, but I kept crying and pointing at the same corner. All of a sudden, my sister walked into the room, pointed at the corner and yelled, "Jessica, stop it!" I immediately stopped crying and Julia said, "Sometimes, Jessica likes to put on scary masks and scare people." My mom was a little freaked out and said, "Well, tell Jessica that if she can't play nice, she can't play here at all." Eventually, my sister Julia outgrew her imaginary friend and stopped mentioning her. A few years later, my little sister Abby began to talk. She told my mom that she had a friend that no one else could see. She said her imaginary friend's eyes turned green when she was upset, and her voice got a little bit deeper. My mother asked her what her imaginary friend's name was, and she replied, "Jessica." One night when we were watching a scary movie, my nephew looked up and said, "What's George doing on TV?" I asked him what he meant, and he said, "That boy on TV looks like George." I asked him who George was, and he replied, "Well, he lives above my bed, and every night when the lights are off, he talks to me, but I can't hear him." So I asked my nephew to draw me a picture of George. So he drew a small boy with black holes for eyes and no teeth who was bleeding from his neck. "That's George," he said. One night I was looking after a 5-year-old boy, and he told me that a man named Jacob, who was dressed like a lumberjack, was sitting next to me on the couch. He must have seen the look of shock on my face and said, "Don't worry, he doesn't have any arms." A friend of mine told me that she was concerned because her son talked about a ghost who would talk to him and play with him in his room. He said the ghost was called the Captain, and he was an old man with a beard. He said the captain told him when he grows up, his job will be to kill people. And then the captain would tell him who he would need to kill. The kid would cry and he said he didn't want to be a killer, but the captain told him that he didn't have a choice, and he would get used to killing after a while. The boy also told a girl in his class, "I know where you live. And you might be good at hiding, but I'll still find you." My little brother had an imaginary friend named Roger, who lived under our coffee table. He said Roger had a wife and 9 kids. Roger and his family lived peacefully under our coffee table for almost 3 years. Then one day, my little brother announced that Roger wouldn't be around anymore. When we asked him why, he told us that he had shot and killed Roger and his whole family. I don't know if he'll remember any of this today, but his genuine lack of remorse was very, very disturbing. When my mother was young, she had an imaginary friend named Shaggy. When she got a little older, she told her mother that she was finished with Shaggy, so she got rid of him. Well, my grandmother asked her what she meant, and she said, "Well, I chopped him up and I put him in the fridge." When my little brother was little, he acted like he had imaginary friends who he was talking to every second of every day. One day, my mom overheard him saying, "I can't kill him. He's my only dad." When I was little, I had a whole gang of imaginary friends. One day, my mom noticed I hadn't talked about them in a while, and she asked me what happened to them. I calmly told her that they all died in a car crash. When I was younger, my best friend had a little sister who was 5 or 6 years old. She had an imaginary friend named Icy. One day, I was waiting for him to come downstairs when his sister came up to me and said, "Icy told me to ask you if you know when you're going to die." I laughed nervously, but I played along. "Well, no, of course I don't," I said. "No one knows that. Hopefully I won't die until I'm very old." The little girl just looked at me and shook her head sadly and said, "No, Icy wants me to tell you that it'll be tonight." And with that, she just turned and walked away. A good friend of the family asked me to babysit their 6-year-old son. I had put him to bed, and a couple hours later, I decided to peek in to check on him. When I opened the door, I saw he was standing in the corner facing the wall. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. I asked him what he was doing, and all he did was turn around, put his fingers to his lips, and say, "Shh." I asked him again what he was doing, and all he said was, "Leave us. It is the punishment." When I was 3 years old, I had an imaginary friend named Facey. Whenever I drew pictures of her, she never had a face. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. My mom asked me why she didn't have any facial features, and I said, "She isn't living anymore, so she's not allowed to have a face." I always thought my cat had a staring problem. She always seemed fixated on my face, until one day when I realized that she was always looking just behind me. Growing up, I always wanted to be just like my mother. I smiled as I swallowed the last bit of her, remembering how she always told me, "You are what you eat." The nightmare comes frequently when the intruder breaks in and murders my family. As usual, I feverishly awoke to soaked sheets, but tonight they are bloody and the knife is still in my hand. The funeral attendees never came out of the catacombs. Something locked the crypt door from the inside. "I thought I'd never know what it's like to be free of you," the widower said to his wife's gravestone. A voice behind him whispered, "You never will." I killed my wife last week. I was so afraid that my son would ask where his mom was, but he didn't. Tonight after dinner, he finally asked me with a strange face, "Daddy, why are you carrying Mommy around on your back every day?" Mom always had a strange habit of stroking my hair when I was sleeping. I never really minded it. it actually started to become reassuring. That changed when she died, but the stroking didn't stop. The grinning face stared at me from the darkness beyond my bedroom window. I live on the 14th floor. I was having a pleasant dream when what sounded like hammering woke me. After that, I could barely hear the muffled sound of dirt covering the coffin over my own screams. I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear, and it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead. I woke up to hear knocking on the glass. At first, I thought it was the window, until I heard it come through the mirror again. A young girl hears her mother call her name from downstairs, so she gets up and starts to head down. As she gets to the top of the stairs, her mother pulls her back and whispers, "Don't go down there. I heard it too." You get home, tired after a long day's work, and ready for a relaxing night alone. You reach for the light switch, but another hand is already there. They deliver the mannequins in bubble wrap. From the main room, I began to hear popping. After so many years living alone in this large house, I came to a startling revelation. In this time, I had closed far more doors than I have opened. The longer I wore it, the more it grew on me. She had such pretty skin. I look into the mirror. I see my reflection blink. I never go to sleep, but I keep waking up. There was a picture of me in my phone, of me sleeping. I live alone. The driver wasn't very chatty, so I checked my phone. I had gotten a text message. It read, "Hey, it's your Uber. I'm outside." I moved in with a cute girl from my college about 2 months ago. I'll be in real trouble if she ever finds out that I'm here. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you'd like to, you can follow me at Twitter. The handle is @FuzzyPantaloons, and I'll see you all next time.